Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaskar. Today we will be continuing with the fourth module, and in this particular module today we shall be talking about the various theories of selling. As you recall, this particular module deals with several topics. We have already discussed the buyer seller dyads, we have discussed the diversity of personal selling situations, and in the next two lectures, which is today and the next lecture, we shall be talking about the various theories of selling, and finally the last lecture in this particular module we will start with the selling process, which we shall continue in the next module as well. So let us begin today with the third lecture of the fourth module, where we will be talking about the various theories of selling. Now when we talk about selling and the approaches to selling, which we have been discussing earlier, they base themselves on certain theories, and these theories themselves have been formulated keeping in mind certain distinct approaches, which are either seller oriented approaches or buyer oriented approaches. Also where certain distinct views have been presented with respect to whether selling is an art or whether selling is a science, or whether it is both an art as well as a science. So based on these distinct views and these distinct approaches, where we speak about buyer and seller oriented theories, and these theories can be further explained, we will be talking about some of these theories. In this particular lecture, we shall be speaking about the Ada's theory of selling, the right set of circumstances theory of selling, and the buying formula theory of selling. So let us now begin with the various theories as well as the approaches and the divergent views to understanding the dynamics of the selling process. Now there are a lot of debates which have happened, and people have discussed, researchers have discussed as to with respect to the nature of selling, and the views that have been presented by researchers, by academicians, by practitioners are something which are very debatable. Now according to some researchers, some practitioners, selling is a science. It is something which is very conceptual, very theoretical in nature, and based on the kind of situation which a salesperson experiences, he would use his conceptual and theoretical knowledge to deal with the particular prospect or with the client, and he would be able to elicit a sale. So according to this particular view, selling is regarded as a science which can be taught. It is something which is very, very conceptual, and is something which is very theoretical. There is another view with respect to the nature of selling, which is that selling is an art. It is something which cannot be taught. It is through concepts or through theories. It is something which is learned through experience, and as salespersons grow over their career, as they experience new situations, new clients, new circumstances, they learn the selling skill, and they are able to imbibe a lot of qualities, lot of selling skills as they go through in their career. So selling, according to them, according to certain researchers, according to certain practitioners, selling is a art. It can be only learnt through experience. There is another view which is a combination of the above two, which says that yes, it is an art, but it is evolving gradually into a science with the kind of theoretical knowledge and the base which already exists, and the kind of research that is being done. Certain principles can be formulated, certain procedures can be well laid out, certain operating procedures can be spelled out, and in this way selling becomes a science. So it is basically an art which is now evolving into the science. Now these two views have led these three views have led to two very distinct approaches which may be used to explain the dynamics of the selling process. Now let's first talk about the first approach. Now the first approach here, we see lays emphasis on the experiential knowledge rather than theoretical or conceptual knowledge. So what we are talking of is more of a view that selling is an art. So according to this approach, it is experience which matters rather than conceptual and theoretical knowledge. And so this particular approach bases itself on the experience of the salespeople who are, and these experiences are regarded as useful takeaways for gaining knowledge and acquiring skills necessary for performing a salesperson's job. So whatever kind of experiences salespeople face are shared, are with each other, and they act as useful takeaways for gaining knowledge and acquiring skills necessary for performing a salesperson's job. People would share their experience with each other, day-to-day experiences which they face in the field with the client and with the customer. They would share these experiences with each other, and fellow salespersons would learn from each other's experiences. They would gain knowledge, they would acquire skills, so that the right kind of approach can be adopted, keeping in mind the circumstances, and in this way a salesperson would be fruitful with his attempts. Now the selling theories based on this approach basically lay emphasis on the what and the how rather than the why. So the focus is here on what to do and how to do rather than why to do. So because of the sharing of experiences, and because of the fact that it is believed that selling can be learnt via experience only, or via sharing of experiences. So because of this fact, the focus here is on what the salesperson does and how he does it rather than why he does it. So the focus is on what does a salesperson do and how does he do it. So this would clearly say that what a salesperson should be doing and how he should be handling a client, rather than the reasoning behind it as to why he should be doing that. So this particular approach believes that sales or selling here can be learnt via experience. It is experience which matters, and with experience people learn what to do and how to do. With experience they also would share with other fellow salespersons their experiences, and this kind of experience sharing will also tell or train other fellow salespersons about what they should be doing and how they should be doing, rather than why they should be behaving in the manner they do. So this what and how would basically pave the way for successful transactions. So in terms of a sale, so the salespersons here must clearly learn from each other and learn from their own experiences as well about what they should be doing and how they should be doing, so that a fruitful response can happen, and a sale can actually take place. Now the second approach here bases itself hugely on behavioral sciences, and it borrows heavily from psychology. It borrows heavily from the field of psychology, and the approach here is more to do with why a salesperson should behave in a particular manner. So this answer to this why would give a deeper insight into understanding the consumer or the prospect, and the salesperson would not only should not only know what he should be doing and how he should be doing, but he must also understand why he should be behaving a particular stimuli for a response to occur, or why he should be presenting a particular product or service offering as a solution to a particular need or a particular problem that the consumer faces. Now two very famous behavioral scientists who have contributed to this approach are Professor Strong at the Stanford Graduate School of Business and Professor Howard at the Columbia Graduate School of Business. Professor Strong proposed the buying formula theory of selling, which basically spoke about the different mental processes which take place, or the cognitive processes which take place within a prospect's minds, and how the salesperson must draw insights into this so as to be able to formulate a appropriate strategy. This would give the salesperson, this would require the salesperson to go into why he should be behaving the way he should be. So it actually means gaining insights into prospects mindset, gaining insight into prospects, needs, wants, and preferences. Professor Howard at the Columbia Graduate School of Business also proposed another theory, which is the behavioral equation theory, which again talks about and gives a lot of emphasis on how a consumer would react and behave given a salesperson's stimuli or the stimuli presented by the salesperson. So both these theories draw heavily from behavioral sciences, and both these theories actually draw upon the field of psychology. They draw from the field of psychology and give an importance to the fact that the consumer is somebody who has to be understood correctly by the salesperson, and this prospect or this consumer behaves in a particular manner, and this particular behavior must be understood by the salesperson before he can devise or formulate a proper strategy. So the very answer or the very response to why he should be behaving in a particular manner would require the salesperson to have a deeper insight into why does a consumer behave the way he does, and so this would act as a cue to the salesperson, who would then be able to formulate a selling style or a selling strategy accordingly. We shall be discussing these theories subsequently. Now let us first go into the major theories of selling. So we will classify these theories into three categories or three groups. We have the seller oriented theories, we have the buyer oriented theories, and we have both the buyer and seller oriented theories. Now as I said in the previous slide that the selling may be considered as an art, it may be considered as a science, and it may also be considered as an art evolving into a science. And I also mentioned that based on whether it's a science or is it an art, based on these views and based on these divergent perspectives, what we get is a large number of theories which can be further classified into seller oriented theories or buyer oriented theories, and some of the theories lay emphasis on what goes on in the consumer's mind or what goes on in the prospect's mind, and how the salesperson must gain an insight into what is happening within the consumer's black box and strategize accordingly. There are other theories which are more seller oriented, which talk about how the salesperson must behave such that the consumer would be acting favorably. So there are theories which lay emphasis on the role played by the salesperson, and these are sales oriented theories, selling oriented theories. On the other hand, there are theories which lay emphasis on what goes on in the consumer's mind and how the consumer's mind must be studied by the salesperson so that the salesperson can devise an appropriate strategy. So these are more of buyer oriented theories, and then we also have theories which are both buyer and seller oriented theories. So in a nutshell, the seller oriented theories lay emphasis on the role played by the salesperson and give a huge importance to the kind of responsibility he has and the role he can play to actually elicit a sale from the prospect. The buyer theories or the buyer oriented theories lay emphasis on the mental processes or the psychological states that a consumer or a prospect goes through, and this which according to buyer oriented theories is something which the salesperson should well understand and devise a strategy accordingly. And we also have the buyer and seller oriented theories. So we shall be discussing the various theories under these three broad heads. With respect to the selling or seller oriented theories, we shall be discussing the IDA theory, and we will be speaking about the right set of circumstances theory. And with respect to the buyer oriented theories, we shall be talking about the buying formula theory of selling. And with respect to the third group or the third category, which are both buyer and seller oriented theories, we shall be discussing the behavioral equation theory. As mentioned in the previous slide, the buying formula theory was proposed by Professor Strong, and the behavioral equation theory was proposed by Professor Howard at the Columbia Graduate School. Okay. Now, let us first start with the IDAS theory of learning. IDAS is a short form of the 5 different stages which the buyer would go through when he becomes aware and informed about a particular product and ultimately buys it, and then reaches a state of satisfaction. So, these 5 stages are attention, interest, desire, action and satisfaction. Now, the IDAS theory of selling is a seller oriented theory, and according to this particular theory, a prospective buyer's mind goes through 5 different mental states. These states are attention, interest, desire, action and satisfaction. For a favorable outcome, that is for sales to happen, it is the responsibility of the salesperson to lead a prospect successfully through all the 5 stages of five mental states. So, as I said, this is a theory which lays emphasis or gives a lot of importance to the role that a salesperson can play for a fruitful transaction to take place, or a fruitful interaction to take place, which would culminate in the form of a sales and ultimately lead to satisfaction of a salesperson, of satisfaction of the buyer with respect to the product or service that he has bought. So, the seller here has or the salesperson here has a huge responsibility to ensure that he can lead the prospect successfully through these 5 stages of attention, interest, desire, action and satisfaction. So, let us discuss these 5 stages one by one. The first stage is the stage of attention. Now, here the salesperson must ensure that he is able to secure the attention of the prospect. Now, securing the attention of a prospect is again a skill. It is something which is a very, very essential part of the selling process, and how would a salesperson be able to secure attention would depend upon several things. What becomes very, very important here is the way the salesperson presents the stimuli here being the product or the service in question. Now, the features, the advantages, the benefits, the attributes are all very, very important, we know, but what becomes important here for the salesperson to secure attention is that he is able to draw upon a need benefit linkage. He is able to understand the consumer's need and present his product as a in the form of a benefit that can help solve a particular problem or help satisfy the customer's need. So, what the salesperson requires to secure attention is, one, the need benefit linkage. The other things which he requires to secure attention is good communication skills, a good rapport building. Now, most salespeople must understand that if relationships have to be long term, it is very important that they develop a rapport with the prospect and forge relationships which are going to be long term. So, if he has to secure the attention of the prospect, it would depend upon a number of factors, 2 of which are very important. One would be to present his product as a benefit which would help satisfy a need or deal with a problem which the consumer is facing, and 2, be very good in communication skills and rapport building skills. What we are essentially speaking of is good interpersonal skills. So, the salesperson must be able to understand the prospect as well as his need and want, and the kind of the benefit that the prospect is seeking, and begin his conversation or his dialogue such that there is a need benefit linkage and he is able to secure the attention of the prospect. The second stage is that he must build upon the prospect's attention so that it can be developed into a strong interest. Now, this would require the salesperson to emphasize again upon the benefit of the product, the features, the attributes, the product characteristics, and the manner in which it would help the consumer meet their need. Now, keeping in mind the benefit, keeping in mind the kind of benefit that the prospect is seeking, the salesperson would have to decide on what to say and how to say. So, here the message content and the message appeal becomes very, very important. So what he has to understand here is the message content. He also has to think about the message appeal. That means how is he going to say things logically, how is he going to say things symbolically. The salesperson may also use certain aids to develop a strong interest in the consumer's minds. These aids could be in the form of leaflets, pamphlets, brochures, with very rich graphics and illustrations. He could also use prototypes and samples, which would again be able to arouse the prospects' interest. And prospects' interests also may get affected by his emotional mood states, the time constraints and other contextual factors. And so it's very important that the salesperson understands such characteristics which may affect the dyadic relationship to continue. And accordingly, once the salesperson understands these constraints, understands these factors, he must adopt an appropriate selling style so that the buyer seller dyad can continue. The third is that the salesperson must arouse the prospect towards a desire regarding the purchase of a product or the service. For example, a salesperson educates a prospect about a dishwasher and its features, advantages, benefits, and provides a demo of the same. Now he should be able to create a desire in the consumer to buy the product immediately, to act now, to buy now. Now the prospect should be made to feel, he should be made to realize that he has been missing out on something which was very important, and he has to be made to realize as to why he has not bought the dishwasher till now, for example, in this case. So if there is a consumer who is given a demo by the salesperson must present his product in such a way that the consumer begins to feel, or the prospect begins to feel, that why have I not bought it till now, why have I missed out on this important benefit or this product which would give me such an important benefit, or why have I missed out on something which is so valuable, or which is such a big value proposition to me. So and it's very important that the salesperson continues communicating with the prospect till the next stage is reached, which is action. Now the next is what the salesperson must do is that he must move the prospect to a stage of action. Now, while the salesperson may inform and educate the prospect about a product, about a brand, about the features, advantages, benefits, etc., he can also create a desire. The action or the actual purchase may not happen till the salesperson has been extremely persuasive. Now, how persuasive a salesperson can be depends upon, one, the technical skills that he possesses. We have spoken earlier that when a salesperson is knowledgeable about the product and about the product category, he is knowledgeable about sales related marketing policies, he is knowledgeable about his company, the company's performance, market share, he is knowledgeable about competitor offerings. All of this would lead to greater confidence in the salesperson, and he will be able to present his offering to the prospect in a very effective manner. It would boost his confidence, it would make him make a better presentation, and this kind of technical skills and the kind of impact that this knowledge would have on his presentation would also build up a lot of confidence in the buyer or in the prospect that yes, I'm speaking to the right salesperson, and what the salesperson is saying is something which he knows as is confident about. So this would lead to greater confidence in the salesperson and also build trust and confidence in the prospect's mind about the salesperson, about his company, and about the product and service offering, and this would actually lead to both the message as well as the salesperson being very persuasive. Another thing which determines the persuasiveness of a salesperson is the interpersonal skills, which we just said. The kind of rapport that he builds with with this prospect is something which is very, very important. So the persuasiveness of a salesperson would depend upon, one, the technical skills, and two, about on the interpersonal skills and the rapport building. Now, in case of the B2B marketing, the manner in which the selling process is handled by the salesperson, including the sales presentation, handling of queries, settling down of objections, etc., has a great impact on the prospect's intention to act. So, the persuasiveness is of a salesperson is extremely important and crucial for the act of purchase to take place and for action to actually happen. The next stage here is that the sales is satisfaction. Now, it's while sales is important, and the transaction is important, the action on the part of the consumer is important, yes, but what is even more important is that the consumer feels satisfied at the end of the day. This would not only lead to loyalty, but it would also lead to good spread word of mouth, and so it's very important that the salesperson here ensures that the buyer is satisfied. So, the product or service offering must help meet a need and want in the best possible manner, and the salesperson should also reassure the customer that he and his company's offering has indeed been a value proposition. He must also attempt at reducing the post purchase cognitive dissonance which a customer may be experiencing. Now, post purchase cognitive dissonance is a feeling of anxiety and uncertainty which a consumer faces when he is not too sure if he has made the right decision or the right purchase decision. So, the salesperson must try and reduce the cognitive dissonance which the consumer faces by ensuring that yes, the product is a right product, it is a good value proposition. He must provide for any and every kind of sales, after sales service that the customer should require, and he should also be able to make the consumer feel and confident that he has made the right decision. The second theory which we will talk of here is the right set of circumstances theory of selling. This is again a seller oriented theory of selling, and it is a situation response theory. Now, what do we mean by a situation response theory? The circumstances here are referred to as a situation, and the response here is a kind of action that comes from the end of the customer. So, circumstances act as situations, and it is the right kind of circumstances which make a prospect respond in a particular manner, and if a sale has to happen or if a positive response must be expected from the buyer or the prospect, it is very important that the seller presents the right kind of circumstances. So, the set of circumstances include factors internal and external to the prospect. Internal factors internal to the prospect include the presence and absence of the prospect's desires, his needs, his wants, and factors external to the prospect include the salesperson's interaction and dialogue, his sales presentation and rapport building, and the personalized attention which the salesperson can offer. So, a salesperson secures the prospect's attention and develops an interest in him towards the purchase of a product or service. In this way, he prepares a fertile ground. In this way, he presents the right set of circumstances. The more trained and skilled a salesperson is in handling such a set of circumstances, the higher the likelihood that there shall be a favorable response from the end of the prospect in the form of sales. So, the theory lays huge emphasis upon the influence of external rather than the internal factors. It gives a lot of importance to the role played by the salesperson in creating the right set of circumstances which would elicit the right response from the prospect or from the buyer. It underplays the impact of the internal factors pertaining to the prospect and undermines the role of the prospect who may respond favorably or unfavorably to the circumstances which have been presented by the salesperson. The third theory which we will talk of is the buying formula theory of selling, and as the name goes, this particular theory is a buyer oriented theory. The name buying formula was proposed by Professor Strong. Of course, there were a lot of versions earlier which were proposed, but we shall be talking about the version as proposed by Professor Strong, and this particular theory lays emphasis on the prospect rather than on the salespersons. So, it is more of what happens in the buyer's mind rather than what is presented to him from the seller, which regarded as a determinant for a fruitful transaction to take place or for sales to take place. So, it is what is relevant here is what happens in the buyer's mind, and what is more relevant to the buyer, and as well as the internal factors to the buyer rather than the external set of circumstances presented by the salespersons. So, the focus is on the need and want of the prospect, and the salesperson's role and responsibility lies in finding a solution to the problem. The solution here being the product or service which would help solve a particular need. Now, the theory helps answer the question as to what goes on in the prospect's mind, and the theory prioritizes the prospect's responses, which of course are strongly influenced by internal factors. So, the theory underplays the role played by external factors, as was discussed, contrary which we discussed in the previous theory. In this particular theory, what is more important is the internal factors, and here the role played by external factors are undermined and underplayed. Now, this is an illustration of the mental processes and responses as adapted from Professor Strong. The consumer has a need or a problem. Now, the solution to the need or problem would mean a purchase, would be through a purchase. Now, the outcome of a purchase determines a continuing relationship between the buyer and the seller. So, it is very important that the purchase also leads to satisfaction. Now, if we talk about the solution, or if we talk about the purchase, the solution here would be in terms of a need, the solution to the need or problem here would be in terms of a benefit. But the benefit here is something which would be derived from a product or a service, and the product or a service also has a name or a trade name. So, if we look at the need or problem, the solution to it is a purchase. Solution of what? Solution of a product or service which has a trade name. Okay. Now, for a purchase to happen, the product or service and the trade name must be perceived as something which is very adequate, as well as looked up to with anticipated satisfaction from the buyer's end. So, what becomes important is that the product or service as well as the trade name must be something which is perceived as adequate and with feeling of anticipated satisfaction. So, we talk of two more elements here: adequacy about the product or service and the trade name, and pleasant feelings associated with the product or service and the trade name. So, what happens in the buyer's mind is that he has a need or a problem, he looks for a solution, the solution of which would be a purchase, and the purchase would be something which should lead to satisfaction, so that it is an ongoing long term relationship between the buyer and the seller. However, purchase will only and only happen when the buyer feels or the prospect feels that the product or service which he intends buying and the trade name or the brand which he intends to buy is something which is adequate, as well as something which will evoke pleasant feelings in his mind. With this, we come to an end of this particular session. So, these are the references. This brings us to the end of the third lecture on the fourth module of the course. Thank you. I hope you have found this session fruitful.